Everything is by Manson. Throughout the ages, the concept of hope has been the main motivator that makes people get out of bed in the morning and keep their perseverance and determination during the most difficult moments in their lives. Whether it's for a better future for themselves, their families, their countries, or for the generations that will come after them. Hope is undoubtedly a powerful driver of human behavior. In his book, Everything is Fucked, Manson explains the concept of hope and how this concept has been a motivation and a relief for so many people through the darkest moments of human history. By explaining the concept, Mark brings to our attention the fact that hope is fundamentally linked to the future and that for so many people in the world, our present time is better than ever. Today's facts and figures show us the rates of violence, racism, poverty, child mortality, and war are the lowest ever in history. As a result, feelings of hope began to diminish around the world and were replaced by feelings of anxiety and fear of losing all the progress and prosperity that humanity has achieved in this era. This may help in explaining why anxiety and depression rates have risen in the United States over the past 30 years, despite the rapid economic and technological development. Bit to remember: in the most difficult times throughout history, hope has helped us to get up and develop ourselves, but it may not be the best motivator in the good times. The author Mark Manson tells the story of a successful businessman named Elliot who had a tumor in the frontal lobe of his brain. The surgery that was done to remove the tumor had some side effects that let Elliot's brain lose the distinction between feelings and emotions. As a result, Elliot would skip important business meetings to do silly tasks like going to buy stationery items or skipping his son's baseball game and watching TV instead. Elliot went to a neurologist named Antonio Damasio, who in turn conducted a study on Elliot by showing horrific images of children's war victims. Through the study, it was found that Elliot didn't show any emotional reactions to the pictures, despite his conviction that he was supposed to be affected psychologically. Elliot's rare case shows us that we need a harmonious connection between the logical, intellectual, and emotional parts of our brains. Let's take an example that you want to stop eating fast food. Your logical mind realizes through what you have studied and read that fast food is bad for your health. But it's your emotional brain that takes the facts and data that you have studied and uses them in the direction of its choice to decide whether the thing you're thinking about is useful or harmful. So making the right decision requires some real negotiation between your emotional mind and your logical mind. Remember that your emotional mind is the one that convinces you to make most of the decisions and that it has the ability to change facts and data to convince you that eating fast food is actually something useful. This concept was also explained by the famous journalist Ahmed al-Shuqairi in his book 40, which we presented in 2 previous episodes of Khair Jalis, where al-Shuqairi named the 3 parts of the mind as Aqlan, Atfan, and Shahwan. Bit to remember: decision-making requires harmony and negotiation between the parts of the mind, as the logical mind alone is not capable of making the best decisions. Mark Manson argues that there are 4 natural laws that controls our emotional state. The first law of the emotional state is that for every action there's a reaction which is equal in magnitude and opposite in direction. Suppose you were exposed to a bad and unfair situation, such as being punched in the face. At that moment, an ethical gap occurs between what you think is just and fair and what's actually happening. Your natural reaction will be as strong as the force of the punch that you were completely exposed to. In those few seconds, you will experience mixed feelings of injustice, extreme anger, and quick revenge. Suppose that you couldn't take revenge or you gave up your right. This assumption takes us to the second law, which states that our self-worth is equal to the sum of the feelings we have experienced over time. If you continue to be constantly humiliated and oppressed and you can't do anything about it, your brain will start looking for compensation. Which is what happens with children who are exposed to violence during their childhood. as with their inability to restore the owner or take revenge, which is the inability to close the ethical gap, their brains begin to enter into a moral shift that makes them believe that they deserve to be beaten and mistreated. Therefore, when children are exposed to bad situations and experiences at an early age, it instills in them some negative beliefs that are difficult to get rid of later. This brings us to the third emotional law. Your identity will remain the same until you're exposed to a powerful new experience that contradicts it. Over time, people develop concepts and stories about their formative experiences that previously shaped their personalities, so it takes a new formative experience to make a significant change in identity and personality. The last law of emotion states that the people around you in your smaller social circle tend to be like you to a large extent. We're usually attracted to people who share the same tastes and preferences that we like, or even things that we dislike. Through these laws, Mark Manson concludes that how we couldn't make a significant change in our lives or our identity, despite our strong hope. And how hope becomes an unattainable goal and turns to be a reason of depression and self-dissatisfaction. But remember, the natural laws of human emotions control how hope affects our lives and determine our ability to change ourselves. When looking at the causes of high levels of anxiety and depression in our time, Mark Manson argues that the two main causes are commercials and so-called fake innovation. Before the 1920s, commercials focused on describing the effectiveness of a product or its specification, but in the late 1920s, products began to address people's feelings of insecurity about themselves. Therefore, advertisements turned from targeting our logical minds to our emotional minds, leaving a significant impact on human psychology and levels of self-confidence. When a developing country begins the path of development and growth, in the beginning it lives in a period of innovation and progress in fields such as medicine, engineering, and urbanism, and therefore unemployment rates in it decrease. And people in these countries become happier, but as soon as this country joins the developed countries, its levels of happiness begin to decline little by little, and in turn, levels of depression and anxiety begin to rise. This is because innovation in these countries turns from being a real innovation with value and purpose to a fake innovation that's goal is only to satisfy people's feelings and make them feel comfortable and fake luxury. In the United States, many people consider it a form of progress and innovation that supermarkets offer a wide variety of food products, such as countless types of breakfast cereals, which people consider a sign of freedom there. But it's in fact a form of fake innovation that leaves us confused, which in the end leads to taking away our freedom to make decisions with the abundance of products and options. For a better explanation of this concept, you can watch the summary of the book The Paradox of Choice by Barry Schwartz, which we talked about in the early episodes of Khairu Jali's channel. With the abundance of choices, we have become obsessed with using technology to facilitate our lives, and with the increase of our use of technology, it has become necessary for us to establish regulations and laws that regulate our use of technology, and therefore limit our freedoms. Mark Manson believes that real freedom comes from reducing things in your life, such as deleting your social media accounts to free up your time and pursue your hobbies. But to remember, commercials and fake innovations are among the major causes of anxiety and depression in most of the developed world. Thanks for watching. Please follow our social media accounts. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel.